To be better than a religion that throws gay people off high buildings is not really a very virtuous achievement.
What do you think that Christianity got right that allows you to make a statement like that?
Do you believe that as a fact, that Jesus died for our sins?
Richard Dawkins and Jordan Peterson recently had a discussion about God and religion. It was at times inspiring, but also exasperating. I'm a Peterson fan, but I found myself cheering on Richard Dawkins, and part of this, which I never thought I'd see the day that I did that. But when you put the two together, they end up touching on an absolutely vital truth about the Christian faith that's profound, and I'll share that in a bit. But first, check this out.
Are you saying that Abraham did or did not sacrifice Isaac? Are you saying that Jesus really did die for our sins? I mean, do you believe that? Do you believe that as a fact, that Jesus died for our sins?
There are elements of the texts that I don't claim to understand. What my experience has been that the more deeply I look into these texts, the more I learn. That doesn't mean that I can proclaim full knowledge of what the texts proclaim. But I don't think, and I'm not trying to play a trick here, you know, I watched an interview that you did recently where you were talking, I think it was with Piers Morgan, about the complexities of trying to understand this strange realm of quantum phenomena, right? And we have a trouble with quantum phenomena because at the micro level, things don't act like things act at the macro level. So they escape our intuitions. And one of the things you said was that although it's perhaps even impossible for creatures embodied like us to get a grip on quantum phenomena, the strange wave-particle duality, for example, we have ample evidence that it works, and stellarly. And I would say exactly the same thing about the biblical texts. If they run into a mystery, like there's a horizon of mystery, which I do not claim to penetrate, but insofar as I've been able to understand the texts, every time I make a improvement in understanding, it reveals something to me that's just like shattering.
Quantum physics is deeply mysterious, and you're saying that biblical texts are deeply mysterious. The difference is quantum physics, the predictions you derive from quantum physics are fulfilled to the umpteenth decimal place. The umpteenth decimal place, I mean, I think it was Richard Feynman says, equivalent to predicting the width of North America to the nearest hair's breadth. Now,
right.
That's impressive. That's
no doubt.
The mystery there, as it were, gains its credentials by its predictions. The mysteries of the Bible don't have any credentials at all, as far as I can make out.
Well, I guess the credentials that I would put, you made a statement a couple of months ago that I found very interesting. And I don't claim to understand it, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot with it. You said that you were a cultural Christian. Okay, and so that raised a number of questions in my mind. You know, and the first question was,
you are changing the subject.
No, I'm
Well, and he's really not, but it is where Peterson does get kind of exasperating, because really Richard Dawkins is after just the question of, is it a fact or is it not a fact? And they kind of go around and round on that. But Peterson's answer is pretty profound here, though.
No, I'm not. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I may be leaping outside of the topic a bit to get back to it.
We can do cultural Christianity, but I think I have a list of questions that you wanted to ask, and that is one of them. But I think Professor Dawkins did ask you...
You're referring to the predictive power and to the utility...
And would anybody want to be Alex O'Connor in this thing?
The stories.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's actually what I was trying to say.
Okay, fine. Go ahead.
Okay, so that was the point. Well, it seemed to me that your proclamation that you were a cultural Christian was a recognition and a statement that you had found something in the culture that had been derived from Christianity that you had an affinity with, and that there's some reason for that. And one of the things I wanted to ask you is, well, what do you think that Christianity got right that allows you to make a statement like that? I mean, I know that there's differences perhaps in what we both think about the ultimate veracity of the biblical stories. Maybe there isn't differences. Like, it would take a lot of conversation to figure this out, but what did you mean by that? Like, what do you think that Christianity got right that would enable you to make a statement like that?
Virtually nothing.
Okay, but it's not nothing in the end, but it's kind of funny answer.
Meant by that no more than that I'm brought up in a Christian culture. I went to Christian schools. I therefore know my way around the Bible. I know my way around the Book of Common Prayer. I know the hymns. That's all. I don't value Christianity as a truth system at all.
Okay, so let me ask you about that, because maybe that's true and perhaps it's not. So the first question is, like, do you think that there are any marked differences between cultural traditions that would enable you to rank order them in terms of their ethical validity?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so for example, we could contrast mainstream UK Christianity with Islamic fundamentalism.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a hierarchy.
There is a hierarchy.
Okay, a hierarchy that points to what?
Well, in the case of Islam, I dislike any religion which punishes apostasy with death, that throws gay people off high buildings, that practices clitoridectomy. That seems to me to place Islam on a lower level than Christianity, but that's not to say anything very positive about Christianity.
Well, it might be to say something positive about Christianity. Like, I think that question is open, because you might ask yourself, what did Christianity get right that led it away from those particular presumptions and towards something that you regard as more ethically appropriate? Like, this isn't a trivial question.
It's a very modest claim. There's not very much. I mean, to be better than a religion that throws gay people off high buildings is not really a very virtuous achievement. So,
I don't know. I don't know if that's true, because if you look at the barbarism that characterizes the human past, you might think that any progression whatsoever towards something approximating mercy and tolerance is nothing short of a bloody miracle.
Well,
like,
that's profound.
People are pretty ruthless, and so are our chimpanzee cousins.
Yes, they are.
Right. So,
yes.
So we move forward into the light with great difficulty,
yes,
and
yes.
the fact that we can take that for granted now, and that it seems self-evident and deserving of faint praise, it's not so clear to me that that's a reasonable proposition.
Okay, let's grant the faint praise, but that has nothing to do with the truth value. And what I care about is the truth value. I see no truth value in the claims of Christianity, the virgin birth, the resurrection, the miracles. Do you believe in any of those? Do you believe Jesus was born of a virgin?
This again where Peterson gets a little more exasperating, because he just doesn't come out and say, because he's asking about the fact part, but very important.
As I said before, there are elements of the text that I don't feel qualified to comment on. My experience has been that the more, I know from a metaphorical perspective and from a mythic perspective what the story of the virgin birth means, and I accept that. I know, for example, that any culture that doesn't hold the image of the woman and infant sacred dies. And I don't know how that needs to be expressed in a form.
Is it true, though?
Do you mean that you don't know?
Well, let me ask you about that, because truth, this is something I talked with Sam Harris about too. Truth, as we know, is a tricky business. Do you think there are differences in the truth claims between different writers of fiction? Like, is Dostoevsky more profound than?
No, well, I wouldn't call fiction truth claims anyway. I mean, these are...
Then on what grounds do we rank order the fiction in terms of quality? Like, Dostoevsky is a profound purveyor of fiction on the philosophical front, unbelievably deep and profound.
Yes,
there's something true about what he's writing about.
It's nothing to do with the truth that science is concerned with. The truth of science is the truth that gets us to the moon. I mean, this is nothing to do with whether one writer of fiction has a sort of insight into human nature. That goes without saying. I accept that.
Okay, so how do we deal with the notion that on the purely factual side, how do we deal with the idea? Let's take you talked about clitoridectomy. Let's talk about the oppression of women.
Yes.
We make a scientific case that that's inappropriate? Or is it a case that we're making on some other grounds? Like, I see in the Judeo-Christian tradition, one of the earliest pronouncements is that both men and women carry the image of God, both. And that sets a certain tone to everything that follows. And it is a remarkable proclamation, given its radical age, that both men and women carry the image of God and are to be treated as something with intrinsic value outside of the domain of power and politics. And it isn't obvious to me, having thought about this a lot, how we deal with that in the pure realm of fact. Because one of the facts is, if I can oppress you, why the hell shouldn't I?
Peterson does get exasperating because Richard Dawkins is all about facts, right? He's a scientist, and but he's talking about the facts of physical reality. Science is the study of the cause and effect relationships between material entities, right? But what Peterson is saying is that, hey, over here, their truth is not just found there because of our experience. And what is the ground? I like the fact that he kept coming back to what is the grounding for your belief that it's not right to throw people off buildings, that it's not right to oppress women. What is the grounding of that? Because civilization hasn't always been that way. And Peterson is saying you're getting that from the Christian faith. You're not getting it from a laboratory. You can't go in and find it in a laboratory. We just kind of assume it. And Dawkins is guilty of just taking for granted that all these things are very obvious. Well, throughout history, they haven't been obvious at all. And how did our culture become revolutionized over to be so much more civilized than we might have been? Tom Holland's Dominion is a great look at that, his book on that. And so when it comes right down to it, it's like these two people are coming up against Christianity from different angles, and Peterson won't quite give himself to the critical importance of the things that Dawkins is pointing out, because the Bible is all about two things. It is about fact. Yes, Jesus did rise again from the dead, literally, physically, historically. He was born of a virgin, but it goes beyond that. It's just not about just facts. It's about the meaning behind those facts. And that's the way we experience life. And that's one of the reasons I believe it so profoundly, is because it brings those two things together. And I think that's what Peterson is edging up against, but he just can't bring himself to come down and say, yes, he was absolutely born of a virgin in real time and real space and everything else. But hopefully he'll conquer that before he dies. So if you want to kind of explore this more, Alex O'Connor, oddly enough, is the one that pressed Jordan Peterson on his outlook on the resurrection. Did it happen or did it not happen? So check that out. Hope that helps. See you next time.